Is being alone something to fear? Hello, my dear friend. Have you ever sat alone in a room full of amenities and bright lights, yet felt a suffocating emptiness surrounding your heart? We live in a world that glorifies connection, where success is often measured by busyness and crowded relationships. Consequently, the concept of being alone is frequently misunderstood as isolation, something scary and synonymous with failure. However, the Buddha once taught, excel at living alone. Why did the enlightened ones cherish solitude so much? Have we been misinterpreting it? Let us find the answer together. Silence is the soil of wisdom. My dear friend, look back at the spiritual history of humanity. Why did most of the great enlightened beings, from Zen masters to the Buddha, choose to withdraw from bustling cities to seek high mountains or deep, quiet forests? This was not an act of escaping reality, but a choice filled with wisdom. They understood that enlightenment is like a precious seed. Such a seed cannot sprout in the middle of a noisy, traffic-congested road. It needs to be buried in the soil of absolute silence. Only when the external noise fades does the internal voice of truth have the chance to speak. Abandoning the golden cage to find freedom. Look back at the journey of Prince Siddhartha. He was born into silk and luxury, surrounded by feasts and praises. Yet, in the midst of that bustle, he heard the earnest call of truth, that these worldly pleasures are as fragile as mist, and the throne was essentially a golden cage imprisoning his freedom. Therefore, on a quiet night, he made a great departure. He courageously left behind his kingdom and loved ones to step alone into the deep forest. He accepted absolute solitude, not because he hated life, but because he understood that only the solitary path leads to true enlightenment. Is loneliness a blessing or a curse? Dear friend, we must clearly distinguish between two states, solitude and loneliness. Being alone is simply a physical state of having no one around. But loneliness is a feeling of lack and suffering when the mind does not know where to take refuge. People often complain, "I am so lonely," precisely because they do not know how to use this precious time. They turn freedom into a prison of boredom. But for a practitioner, solitude is not a curse. It is a blessing. It is the time when you can return completely to yourself, undistracted and uninfluenced by anyone. Loneliness only becomes suffering when your mind has not been trained to enjoy the beauty of stillness. When left alone, wisdom brightens. To deeply understand the power of solitude, let us travel back to a turning point in the Buddha's life. After leaving luxury, he embarked on the path of extreme asceticism for 6 long years. He reached the limits of self-mortification, eating so little that his body was merely skin and bones, driven by the iron belief that torturing the flesh would free the spirit. Eventually, he realized this was a mistake, for an exhausted body cannot hold a clear wisdom. He decided to abandon that extreme path, accepting a bowl of milk rice from Sujata to restore his health and find the middle way. Ironically, just as he found the correct direction, his 5 close fellow practitioners, the monks who had shared his hardships, turned their backs on him. They believed he had fallen, succumbed to desires, and was no longer worthy of companionship. Imagine his feelings at that moment. In the vast forest, he was left entirely alone. No teacher to guide him, no companions, and no one left to believe in him. That was the ultimate solitude. But dear friend, in the moment of being left alone to face himself under the Bodhi tree, the greatest miracle occurred. When the noise of debate ceased and reliance on others vanished. His mind became absolutely still like a rippleless lake. That very solitude was the final catalyst, the sacred fire that forged the diamond of wisdom. He defeated all internal demons and achieved supreme enlightenment. This story is powerful evidence that sometimes being left alone is not a tragedy, but an arrangement of destiny so you can ascend the peak of awakening by yourself. Only when you dare to walk alone can you go the furthest. Transforming loneliness into inner strength. Dear friend, when facing four walls in silence, the first feeling that often arises is restlessness, discomfort, or even an immense sadness. This is the raw energy of loneliness. But please do not fear it or try to destroy it, for energy is never naturally lost. It only transforms from one form to another. Imagine that loneliness as a torrential waterfall surging inside you. If you let it stagnate, it becomes a swamp of depression and negativity. But if you know how to channel it, that waterfall becomes a powerful hydroelectric source, pushing the boat of your life forward at an incredible speed. The secret of this miraculous transformation lies in identifying a proper life purpose. When you have an ideal to pursue, loneliness is no longer a meaningless void. It becomes the necessary free space to sharpen yourself. Do not just fill time with material goals or vain fame. Direct your mind toward deeper spiritual values. Use your time alone to cultivate wisdom, nourish compassion, or understand yourself. Then, loneliness will no longer be a burden. It will transform into a fire that warms and illuminates your path, turning you into the most brilliant version of yourself. The 15-minute practice of facing yourself. To begin the journey of befriending solitude, I invite you to make a small but powerful commitment. Spend exactly 15 minutes every day truly being alone. Dear friend, please do not confuse time for yourself with entertainment. We often think being alone means lying on a sofa watching a movie, scrolling through a phone, or reading a book. These are actually forms of distracting the mind to flee from internal emptiness. The practice I am talking about requires much more courage. During these 15 minutes, turn off your phone and TV completely and put all electronic devices in another room. Choose a quiet corner, sit comfortably, and do nothing. Yes, your only task is to do nothing. Just sit there and face yourself. At first, you will certainly feel restless and uncomfortable. Your mind, used to constant external stimulation, will begin to scream with boredom. It will remind you of unfinished tasks, random worries, or invent stories to pull your attention away. Please do not panic and do not give up. That restlessness is the sign that you are beginning to detox from the noise. Practice being a silent observer. Watch the thoughts jumping in your head like watching clouds drifting across the sky or traffic passing on the street. Do not judge them. Do not try to chase them away. And do not get swept up by them. Simply acknowledge, "Ah, I am feeling anxious," or "Ah, I am feeling bored." When you learn to sit still and smile at your own messy thoughts without needing any external soothing, that is when your inner strength is formed. You will realize that you are completely capable of bringing peace to yourself. These small 15 minutes are the solid foundation for building an inner house of peace where you can take safe refuge no matter how stormy life becomes. Vipassana and the art of observing the emotional rain. Once you can sit still with yourself for 15 minutes, let us go a bit deeper into the nature of stillness through the image of rain. There is a beautiful saying in Zen, The same rain falls, but it makes weeds grow profusely in the garden of the lazy, while helping roots run deep and flowers fruit in the garden of the diligent. Solitude is exactly like that rain. If you do not know how to practice, solitude nourishes sadness and boredom. But if you have a method, it nourishes wisdom. That method is vipassana, also known as insight meditation. Do not worry about the complex-sounding name. Simply put, it is the technique of seeing things exactly as they truly are. When you sit alone, your mind tends to play the role of a time traveler. It treks back to the past to chew on old pains or rushes to the future to paint anxious scenarios. Vipassana teaches you to stop that aimless journey and return fully to the present moment. Take a specific example. Suppose while sitting still, a memory of someone who once insulted you suddenly rushes back. Habitually, you would feel angry, your heart would beat fast, and you'd start imagining retaliation. But a Vipassana practitioner does not get swept up in the story. They turn inward and observe the sensations in the body. They notice, the chest is heating up, the breath is getting shallow. They just watch those sensations like someone standing on a porch, watching the rain fall. When you observe without reacting, you will realize a great truth: impermanence. Anger arrives, flares up intensely, and then gradually dissipates. No rain falls forever without stopping, and no emotion, whether loneliness or suffering, can last eternally if you do not intentionally cling to it. Understanding this, you will no longer fear facing negative emotions while alone. You know they are just visiting guests, while you are a sturdy and peaceful home. That is the secret to finding tranquility right in the heart of solitude.